welcome to the Cheer Up Podcast. I am your host, Kara R. Hunt, and with me is author and writer and novelist, Sherry Swalwell. How are you doing this morning, Sherry?
I am doing great. Now it is actually, no, we just finished. That's what it is. So I was right last week. I'm telling you, me and numbers just don't work. Words, absolutely, 100%. Numbers, not so much. So we just celebrated Memorial Day weekend. Are you feeling more refreshed because we had an extra day?
Yes, because heaven knows I need them. Because, like I've been mentioning for months, I feel like I lost the whole month. I have no idea where February went, so I'm still a month behind. So any extra time, hours, months, days that we get, I am all for.
Well, I am actually extra excited because tomorrow is my birthday, and there are only 2 more days left of school. So it is almost my birthday and summer break. So woo-woo!
How does that work, having a birthday right after such a big, huge American holiday?
It's kind of neat. And it's different every year because, let's see, if there's a Monday, so the first Monday in June, the last month, see, I told you, numbers and me just don't work. The last Monday in May is always Memorial Day weekend. So depending on how the calendar goes, sometimes my birthday's right by the holiday and sometimes my birthday's a week later. It's kind of like Thanksgiving. You know how Thanksgiving's different every year? And Father's Day? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Depending on when they fall, you may have a break or maybe right after.
Right. And kind of like our daughter, sometimes her birthday falls right on Easter. Sometimes it falls like 3 weeks after Easter. It just depends on when Easter hits. So yeah. We got married.
That's my brother too. He's an Easter.
Really?
Yeah, depending on when Easter falls, because his birthday has actually been on Easter, just like your daughter's.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And our anniversary, same thing. So we got married in between Friday and Sunday. So in between Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, we got married. And then sometimes sometimes our anniversary falls on Easter or Easter weekend, or it just all depends. And sometimes our anniversary is the day before our daughter's birthday. So sometimes we celebrate Easter, our anniversary, and her birthday all in the same weekend.
How cool is that? You get to do all three of them,
Yeah.
And all in the same day. That is like wonderful to me. As someone who can be very uptight about being organized, that to me is like an organizer's dream because everything is on one day.
Very true.
It's like you don't have to, do 3 different days. You know what I'm saying? So, but I've always wondered how when a birthday falls close to a holiday, or a holy day, how did people feel about that? Because sometimes to me in my mind, I feel like you kind of feel like the time is not really yours, right? Because everybody else is either doing something else or getting ready for the big holiday, or a holiday like Christmas and Easter and everything else. And so, yeah, I just always wonder how that felt. I was like, I wonder if they kind of feel like, hey, what about me?
I guess maybe because Memorial Day is kind of a lesser holiday, and by that I'm not nearly.
I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm. I'm not defaulting from the honoring of our Memorial Day. Is the one? Is that the fallen soldiers one? I think so. Right?
In memory of them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm not defaulting from that at all. But because it's not like 4th of July or Christmas, I don't think it really bothered me, and it still doesn't bother me. It's just kind of sometimes I get an extra day to celebrate. So like,
you do, right?
That Monday that's a little less busy and it's not part of the same normal routine. So that part's kind of cool. So my birthday's on a Thursday, and I was actually born on a Thursday. So I have one of those, whatever those things are called. But yeah, so my birthday is tomorrow. And I used to be the type of person who didn't think about, I always thought about, but I never, talked about my birthday But you were the one that taught me last year birthdays are to be celebrated. So I mentioned it this year because tomorrow is my birthday. So yay.
Yay! We're celebrating you, Sherry.
And that's not what we're talking about in the podcast today. So I guess we can forget about the fact it's my birthday, because today we're talking about ways to share God's love with others, not being self-absorbed.
Oh, right. It's just funny how all of that just kind of commingles, right? But you know what? We have to love ourselves first. We have to love ourselves.
That is true. In fact, that goes back to Mark 12, what we talked about 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Yes.
And you shall love the Lord your God first, and then love your neighbor as yourself.
And love your neighbor as yourself. And so there's got to be self-love as well as love for other people, because if you do not like yourself, it's going to be very, very hard to share any type of love with someone else, let alone God's love.
Yes. And you know what, Sarah? That makes me really think about, so a couple of months ago, I had a colonoscopy. Now, I know most people don't really talk about that, but it's just a fact of life. And this is my third one. I'm only 50, but I'd had issues. And the prep this time was a little bit difficult, or a little bit more difficult than it has been in the past. And I have family members who have gastrointestinal issues. And I'll tell you what, I have more empathy for them now after what I went through with the prep, because they deal with more difficult things than that every day of their lives. And so when you say that when you learn how to love yourself, you can love others, it also goes the same way with empathy. When you can, because I don't know how many people have said to me over the years, well, I just don't understand. Like if you get vulnerable enough with somebody and you say, I suffer from depression, or I have anxiety attacks, or I have panic attacks, somebody who has never experienced that might not be trying to be mean to you, but when they come across as, well, it can't be that bad because they've never experienced it, it makes you shut down. So when you love yourself, so we'll take the birthday example. What would I love to have on my birthday? I would love it if somebody brought me a cup of coffee, decaf, because I'm only in decaf right now. But I would love a cup of coffee. So when you think along those mindsets and you think you have a friend who has a birthday coming up, maybe you should ask them ahead of time, or maybe you should figure out ahead of time something that they love, and then you can give it to them. It will take you, a half an hour out of your day, maybe at the most, depending on if they're a coworker and you're just stopping on your way to work to grab something, or if they live 15 minutes from your house and you can drop something off. I mean, it'll take a half an hour out of your day, but you know what? They will remember it for a lifetime.
Exactly, and sometimes we don't even know that until, until like years later that, something meant something to someone, and it's just because we're just giving them a gift because we love them and we care for them and we really think they would enjoy it, right? And everything else. But to them, it's like you now have a piece of their heart. Right. You know what I'm saying? You now have a piece of their heart. You may never know why, that particular gift did that to them, but you just never know. And I remember, it was quite a long time ago. A very good friend of mine, we met some 25 years ago or something like that, in a church we were in. And we just immediately, built up a friendship or whatnot. She eventually had to relocate to another state. And before she had left, I had a Bible. And, of course I had a Bible, right? But I mean, it was this particular Bible. that I had that I kept a lot of notes in. And I think I just remember her commenting on it one time. And so before she left, before she had to, go to another state, I had given her that Bible. And at the time I had so many notes in there. You know how the pastor goes through a sermon and, you make little notes in your Bible. I know there are people right now going, Kara, I can't believe you write your Bible, you know, but I do because I don't want to lose anything that has just spoken to me. You know what I'm saying? That the minister is teaching me. And so I had tons of notes in that Bible, and she had made a comment about it one time, and I had given it to her. Fast forward, we kind of lost contact with each other because I had moved. She didn't have my new address, and everything else. And then at the same time, where she had moved to, she had also moved. So we ended up just like literally losing contact information for each other. So it was about 15 years before we reconnected again, maybe closer to 20. And I remember one of the first thing she had said to me was how much she had cherished that Bible, and how much it had meant to her over the years. And it's, in my notes that were in it, and to me, it was just like, because I have other Bibles, right? I'm like, okay, now just mark this one up. And I didn't think much of it. But just those little notes, just everything that I had written in there, and everything else just had blessed her so much. And I did not know that, I just think I think she had mentioned something about the Bible one day or something, and I had given it to her. And who knew that through those 15 years when we had lost contact and she was going through some very difficult times, that those words that Bible would be such a source of comfort for her, and that she still felt like, even though we had lost contact, that she was hearing from me because I had my words in there. I had notes in there, and things like that. And so sometimes when we do something, if it's especially when you feel like the Lord is telling you to give someone something, do it. You have no idea how that's going to bless them. You have none. You think it may be something they might enjoy, but it could end up being something way deeper, and everything. And so it was just, when she told me that just really, really spoke to me, because it was like I was still speaking to her, even though we had lost contact. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that nails it on the head of what we're trying to talk about today. And that is when we open ourselves up. Well, first off, when we look at life as an adventure, when we look at our Christian walk, our relationship with Jesus, I hate to say the word Christian because it's been mutilated so much. So when we look at our Christ following life, our relationship with Christ as an adventure, life is so much more fun. And you have a Bible story or a Bible example, and I have one too. I used to do daycare in our home. I was newly married, and one of my daycare women, mothers, I don't even know how we got to be talking about it, because I don't think that she was even a believer at the time, to be honest with you, but she was open. And I felt this nudge from God to give her my Bible. And I didn't do it as willingly as you did. I did not do it willingly, but I was like, really, God, you want me to give her my Bible? Like, this is my Bible. And I just kept hearing him say, give her your Bible. You have like 5. Give her your Bible. And I'm like, yeah, but this is my Bible. Those are the family Bibles. This is my Bible. But I mean, I didn't argue with him. I just wanted to make sure that I was hearing him right. And
because when you have a favorite Bible, you have a favorite Bible. I mean, that's just the truth. But go ahead.
And so I gave it to her, and I wasn't even sure if she was going to want it, because, like I said, I didn't even know if she was a believer. But it felt so wonderful to just, it wasn't even so much the giving of the Bible that felt wonderful. It was the listening to God's voice. The one that he would want to speak to me, to do something for somebody else, to bless somebody else, and then to do it, it just fills you to the brim. Well, then, and I've told this story a gazillion times on the podcast, but my prayer partner, when we first started our friendship, I had talked to God. We had gone to the library, and our library used to have a Keurig, and it was 75 cents for a cup of coffee. And they had coconut mocha coffee, and I'd always wanted to try that flavor. And I did not feel myself worthy of 75 cents to get myself a cup of this coffee. We were going through from some financial things. I had lost my job, and even though it was no fault of mine that I lost it, I felt responsible. So I wasn't going to spend any of our money because I wasn't making any money, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I didn't feel worthy of 75 cents for a cup of coffee. I know now that was totally the Satan's lies, but I had a conversation with God about it. And I said, you know what, Lord, if you want me to have or try this coconut mocha coffee, then you have to give it to me because I am not buying it myself. And I can get pretty stubborn at times. That was in the summer. And in December, God not only gave me 1 cup of coconut mocha coffee, he gave me a 24-pack of coconut mocha coffee. And do you know, and I didn't even think about this, Kara, but did you know I opened the box when our computer guy was here fixing our computer, and he always loved it when I would make him coffee. And I offered him some of the gifts that God had given me because I felt so blessed. And so I didn't even drink all 24 myself. It was more of a blessing to share and to give it away because that is the way that God is. Like when he blesses us so abundantly and more than we could ever ask or imagine that we just want to then in turn bless other people as well. And then back to the Bible story. So my prayer partner, again, she bought me a new Bible. This was years after I gave away the other Bible. And she bought me a Life Application Study Bible. Well, this became my new favorite Bible. And I'll tell you what, Kara, if God asks me to give it away to somebody, I will. But I will probably cry tears on this one and then go buy me a new one because I love this Bible. And I have shared about it so much because of how much I love it that 2 of my friends have now gone out and bought them and they love it too. So your enthusiasm is contagious. Like when God blesses us and when we hold things lightly enough that we can then give them away, he blesses us even more. Like I liked my original Bible that I thought was like the best Bible ever, but I loved my Life Application Bible. And I am at the point now where I would give it away if that's what God asked me to do, knowing that he has something better for me. And the better for me could be, you just need to be content with the Bibles that you have. And I would be. Like, that's just the infectious, wonderful adventure or the wonderfulness of being on this adventure as a Christ follower. I just love it.
I do.
Anything that is so out of the box and out of the ordinary that you would not normally do because God nudged you to do it?
I don't know if I could say out of the ordinary, but I can't say out of the ordinary, but let's just say if it was one of those situations where okay, so for example, there was a couple of years ago a very polarizing event that happened in our world. A very, very, type of event where people were, taking sides and people were marching, and they were protesting and they were all, all talking about being, well, of course this is the thing and, we should all be a part of this, and there were so many conversations going on about this particular, event that had happened and, the responses to it and things like that. And when a conversation would just come up, among friends or whatnot, it was one of those conversations that I felt nudged to say a lot about. But so it wasn't out of the ordinary, for me to give my opinion necessarily on it, but it was one of those very tough subjects to where I kind of wish I could have bowed out of it. Is that the word I'm looking for? To just like, okay, what I'm going to say is going to be very contrary to what they think I'm going right to say, right? And do I really want to do this? You know, and should I even do this? But I have found out that when you are given that nudge, you just got to do it. You know, and everything else. And I know what I had said was probably not expected. In some cases, it probably was. I think I went a little bit deeper into what they thought they were going to be a part of. But you know what? I'm like, I really feel like I said, because I really feel like they're being misled, that they're being lied to about something. And do you know? And so, I opened my mouth and I said things, and I had to, and because it was such a polarizing event at the time, I had to do it over and over and over and over again. Do you know, years later now, that particular organization has been exposed? For what, and everyone thought they were the greatest thing, and everything else, and now they've been exposed, and that what people thought they were being a part of, they really weren't being a part of, and it was something else. The leaders had something totally different. They had a whole nother entire agenda, and everything else. So a lot of times we just have to do it, even though we don't want to, even though the conversation is tough, even though my response may even be polarizing. But it's just to stay calm, respond the way you feel like the Lord is nudging you to respond, and say it anyway. And then in this case, it took years, right? For it to be like, see, I was trying to tell them, because now look what's happening. But it really wasn't me. I think it was just God saying, hey, I placed you in this place, in this environment, in this situation, because I want you to share some things. So now that we know that organization was a fraud, I think it was just like God's way of using me as a vessel to warn them. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And see, that all goes back to what we're talking about of being used by God and putting ourselves in the position where we say to him every day, every week, every month, whatever you're most comfortable with, God, how do you want to use me today? God, how can I be a blessing today? God, I want to be a blessing today. So I had an experience, or I had an example, because part of that is, how do you know if it's God, and how do you know if it's not? Well, if it doesn't line up with the Bible, then it's not God. That's a given. But there are some gray areas where it may line up with the Bible, but you're not sure if it's really from God or not. But you know what? In my opinion, do it anyway. If you're feeling a God nudge, or if you're feeling like you're feeling a God nudge, and it's not contrary, it's not going to impede your safety. You won't be unsafe doing it unless sometimes God puts us in unsafe situations, like what you just explained. That could have gotten heated and volatile, and who knows?
Right.
Depending on what group you were with. But if God brings you to it, he's going to bring you through it. But if you don't know if it's God or not, if it's safe, if you believe it's still biblical, then I say go for it. Jump in, and if you're wrong, who cares? And if it's a learning experience. And if you're right, then you might have just blessed somebody. So there was an instance a couple weeks ago where I really, okay, now this sounds really bad about me, but I really wanted a McDonald's big breakfast. There was no reason why I needed it. I'm supposedly getting healthy. There's no reason I should have gotten it. But I'm like, I really want a big breakfast. I can afford it. I can eat it. Why not? So I was going back and forth, and I'm like, God, if you want me to eat this big breakfast, then will you just let me eat it guilt-free? Let me go buy it guilt-free, take it home, I'll eat it, blah, blah, blah. Well, I still wasn't sure if you wanted me to have it or not, but I bought the big breakfast, and I was on my way home, and there was this, I'm assuming she was homeless, I'm not really sure, like young adult woman sitting on the side of the road. Now, my son and I had seen him as I was dropping him off at school in the morning, and we had commented about it. Well, she was still there. So as I was driving by her, I felt like God said, that breakfast isn't for you, Sherry. That breakfast is for her. I'm like, what? I really wanted that big breakfast. But I'm like, okay, God, because as soon as I put the breakfast in the car, even the smell bothered me. And I'm like, wait a minute. I wanted this. Like, I was craving this. Why am I not excited now? And I felt regret after buying it. And he goes, the breakfast isn't for you, it's for her. So I had driven past her. So I turned around, I drove back, and I didn't even know what was on her sign. I didn't see what she had written on her sign. And so I rolled down my window, and all I said to her was, are you hungry? And she just kind of like paused for a second, and then she nodded her head. And I said, well, here. I said, I have food. You can have it. And she goes, well, I really need shoes and clothes. And I said, well, I don't have those. I said, but I do have food. And so she came and got the food. And I said, do you like coffee too? And so she said, yes. I gave her the coffee. And as I was leaving, I said, okay, God, I wasn't as nice as I could have been. Like I could have said, what's your name? I'll pray for you. Here's my name. Like I could have been nicer. And instead I was just like, here's some food. And so I thought about her all day long. Like it was one of those things where I just couldn't stop thinking about her. And so I made a couple sandwiches. I got some fruit. I got some vegetables. I got some cookies. I got some granola bars. I got some stuff, nuts and stuff like that around our house that I thought, water bottles, that I thought she could eat, that she would be able to have for longer than just one meal. Because I thought one meal is one thing, but if she's truly homeless, she's probably hungry, and she's going to be hungry again. And it was a warm day. But I didn't know if it was really from God or not. I didn't know if it was just a me, like, okay, you know, God let me bless this person now, so I'm going to over bless her. I'm going to like abundantly bless her. Like this is going to be awesome. Or if it was really him. Well, I never saw her again that day. And I looked for her. I looked for her, not just where she was, but I looked up and down on the way to my son's school, on the way back home. I looked all around and I couldn't find her. Was I embarrassed that I did that? No, because I thought I was pursuing a God nudge. And obviously I heard him wrong because I didn't see her again.
Right.
But I tried to obey. I tried to do what I thought God wanted me to do. So I came home. I put all the food away. It was sandwiches for my son for school this week. So nothing was lost. Nothing was, you know, whatever. But wasted. I tried. And I think that God sees our heart. And I think that he knows that when we want to obey like that, it pleases him just as much. And I saw her later. I saw her once this week coming out of a local motel. But I didn't see her to a point where I could have stopped and said, hey, how are you doing or anything. So I figure if God wants me to cross paths with her again, and this time she had a suitcase, so I don't know if she ended up getting her clothes or not. But if God wants me to cross paths with her again, he'll let me. And at least I was able to give her breakfast. And I think that it was more of a lesson for me that I tried. Like I did what I thought he wanted me to do. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? Each time is just as important because you never know which is the time that's going to work and which is the time that won't.
Exactly. And so what suggestions do you have for our listeners, Sherry, if they're like, you know, give me 1, 2, or 3 practical steps of how I can just show God's love to my community?
Oh, I love that question because the thing that I answer the most with that is start a conversation with God. Ask God the question, how do you want to use me, Lord? And then just put your antenna up. And you may say, well, I never hear from God. I don't know what it sounds like when I hear from God. That is the best place to start. And that's the place that's the most exciting. That's the place where God can use us the most because we're available and we're ready and it's an adventure. So ask God, where do you want me to be a blessing just today? Ask him, how do you want me to bless somebody today? Put somebody in my path. And sometimes the blessing is as small as there's somebody in one of those like shopping cart wheelchair things. I don't know, motorized shopping cart things. And they have a watermelon underneath that they can't reach. And you just say, hey, would you like me to put that in the back of your truck for you? I did that one time. The guy was not very happy with me, but you know what? I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. So, I mean, it doesn't always work out well. Like sometimes the adventures that you go on, you're like, was that a God thing or was that a Sherry thing? Because I annoy that person more than bless them. I'm not really sure. but and like that's the best place to start. And then the more you listen, the more you activate the faith, the more you activate the nudges that you think you're hearing. And again, make sure that they're biblical, make sure that you're safe, make sure that you're, you can look crazy, but make sure you're safe. Like if God's calling you to it, he'll keep you safe. Don't do something incredibly stupid and expect God to save you if it's not from God.
But if it wasn't wise, right.
Right. God isn't usually going to ask you to do, he might ask you to do things that are embarrassing. He might ask you to step outside your comfort zone, but very rarely does God ask you to do something that isn't safe, because he usually prepares it ahead of time so you will be safe and you'll feel that peace. You might be embarrassed. Your blood pressure might raise because you're like, oh my gosh, I hope nobody I know sees me doing this because I'm so embarrassed. But that's very different than, okay, God, I really feel like I'm going to die. Like, this is not right. I'm not supposed to be walking out on a 100-foot drop ledge to, give this pigeon some water. No, I don't think God's asking you to do that. That's not safe. And a pigeon can get its own water. So make sure that what you're doing is safe, but embrace the adventure of it. Embrace the part of what can I do to bless somebody else? And sometimes it'll flop, sometimes it'll soar, but every time you'll be blessed, because even in those times when it flops, you at least still have the blessing that you obeyed God, or that you thought you were obeying God. You thought it was God, so you obeyed. And it's, to me, there's just no better way to live life. It just makes life so much more exciting, so much more fulfilling, and so much more of a blessing.
Absolutely. And let's just say you do something that causes you to be like really, really embarrassed, or something like that, but you really feel like God called you to do it. You now just not only did you obey, but now you have a humorous story to tell your family every Thanksgiving at dinner.
Exactly. Well, that happened to me. So one Saturday, I was driving our two youngest kids, and there was this accident on the side of the road. And we passed by it, and I really felt like God said to me, you need to go back and you need to offer to watch that guy's kid so he can deal with the police. And I'm like, God, he is going to think I'm some molester or something.
Right.
He's going to be afraid I'm kidnapping his kid in the front of the police. And who does that? Nobody does that, God. And he just said, Sherry, I need you to do this. And your kids are with you. It'll be fine. He'll see that you're not a kidnapper. You're just a mom. And so I went back and I was like, sir, I know you don't know me from Adam. I have two children over there. Would you like me to watch your kid while you talk to the police until, somebody can one of your family members comes? And he was like, yes. So he was happier for me to take his kids, and his kid was happier for me to be with him. Well, my two kids came over, and so we were playing with their child. And it turns out that one of the police officers that was doing the case, that happened to be on call that day or on duty that day, was my next door neighbor. And he said to me, he goes, do you know this guy? And I go, nope. I just felt like I needed to stop and help. And that's embarrassing. I mean, really, okay, Sherry, what are you doing out in the middle on a Saturday morning, in the middle of the road? Just helping, just babysitting.
Just babysitting.
Doesn't everybody babysit? Of course you do. It was embarrassing, but I'm so glad I did it. I'm glad I did it to show my kids that we listen even when it's uncomfortable. I'm glad I did it to be a witness to my neighbor. I'm glad I did it to be a witness to that guy. Have I ever seen him again? I don't think so. If I have, I don't recognize him. But who cares? It wasn't about me. It was about being God's hands and feet.
And sometimes, you never know, and this kind of goes back to our previous podcast episode where we were talking about this. You never know how it's going to be a blessing to the person who you give it to. You do it for. I remember as a child, you were talking about car issues on the side of the road. I remember as a child, and I think I could not have been any older than 10, but maybe I was maybe I was probably 12, because we had my mom was a sports mom, right? I have two brothers and two sisters, so it's five of us all together. But she was a sports mom, and my brother played a lot of sports, especially like football. But the problem was that the games weren't always really close and local, and sometimes we were taken to parts of the area and states where people didn't just quite look like us. I'm just gonna say that. And one night, it was my mom was driving, and she had a old station wagon. We loved that station wagon because station wagons were so cool back then. So she had this, and I think it was four of us in a car. I don't think my baby brother was with us, but I think it was like four of us in a car, all kids. My sister would have been a couple of years older than me, and we were out in the middle of nowhere in a very unfamiliar area, and the game was over. Right, the game was over, but it got out late. This is a child like football sports game. It had gotten out late, and it was dark, and the car breaks down like out there in the middle of nowhere. Like, you look to your left, your right, in front of you, and behind you. There was like nothing, or almost like darkness, right? Just a few lights here and there. And now we're talking back when there weren't cell phones, so she couldn't just, grab her cell phone, call AAA, or call a family member to come help us. And so here she is stranded. Here we are stranded in the middle of nowhere in a place we're completely not familiar with, in a place surrounded by people we left that didn't look anything like us, and it's dark, and we were just like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And I remember as a child feeling really scared, and everything else. Then all of a sudden, a man pulls up, in front of us. And I think my mom was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Didn't quite feel safe with him at first. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like you said, someone pulls up and you're like, they're going to think I'm here to harm them,
Right.
And everything else, because I think he was the only one in the car as far as I could see, as I remember, and everything else. And, he approached my mom kind of slowly, and he was pretty much along the lines of saying, hey, I see, you have kids in a car, young kids in a car, and looks like you have car trouble. I can I lift the hood or whatever and see if I can help? And she kept her distance from him, but she was like, okay, and everything else. He got the car running. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know what happened. He got it running, and everything else. And I remember just being so relieved, like, oh, finally, like, I don't know what as a kid I thought was going to happen, out there, but it's just like, but it's dark, right? And it's like, no one knows we're out here, what's going to happen, and everything else. And so he got the car fixed, and I think my mom offered him some money or something like that, and, or whatnot. And I don't think he just kind of was like, no, I saw you needed help, and everything else, have a good night. And I think he gave her some tips on if, like, I think he asked how far did she have to drive. And I think she told him, and it was like, it's a nice little distance, almost an hour or so before we got home. And I think he had maybe gave her some tips on, hey, if it stops again, you may want to do this, that, and this, but get it to a mechanic like as soon as possible. And I just remember feeling so relieved, and everything else. Now, was that man a Christian? I have no idea, but in my heart, it's like I could just see God, because, God uses the faithful and the unfaithful, his believers and unbelievers, to help out his people, and I'm like, God is so good. It's like he saw our distress, and everything else. And it was like, it wasn't even like we could all get together and walk somewhere, because it just seemed like it was so far down the road, and everything else. So those little things, the things like you did, like babysitting that young child while his father dealt with, the police and all that, and everything else. I bet you he still remembers that, because this happened decades ago, and I was a child, and everything else. And I still remember that, because I remember the fear of, oh my goodness, what now? right? And it's like, and it didn't seem to be a very well traveled road, or something like that. And so, and it's like the stuff you do not only blesses you, because here it is decades later and I still remember that, but it can also, bless the people who you're doing it for. And I think that is just such a good example of showing love and godly love, whether they intended to or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that story, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that the best way to wrap up our series is to go back to Romans 12, 9 through 21, read through the Message. And I think that I'm just going to end it this way. So if you want to check out Kara's website, it's KARARHUNT.com. If you want to head over to my website, it's SherrySwalwell.com. If you have a prayer request or an encouragement, you can email us at cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. Come join us and tell us your stories of how God has used you to bless others on the Cheer Up Podcast Facebook page. And I'm going to end by reading this. And it's just a way for us to internally reflect on how God wants us. What's one way that we can change to be more like God and to show his love to others? And what's one question that we want to ask God to start that conversation with him to be that blessing to somebody else? Because like Kara said, it in turn blesses us as well. So Romans 12, 9 through 21. Love from the center of who you are. Don't fake it. Run for dear life from evil. Hold on for dear life to good. Be good friends who love deeply. Practice playing second fiddle. Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. Be alert servants of the Master, cheerfully expectant. Don't quit in hard times. Pray all the harder. Help needy Christians. Be inventive in hospitality. Bless your enemies. No cursing under your breath. Laugh with your happy friends when they're happy. Share tears when they're down. Get along with each other. Don't be stuck up. Make friends with nobody. Don't be the great somebody. Don't hit back. Discover beauty in everyone. If you've got it in you, get along with everybody. Don't insist on getting even. That's not for you to do. I'll do the judging, says God. I'll take care of it. Our scriptures tell us that if you see your enemy hungry, go buy that person lunch. Or if he's thirsty, get him a drink. Your generosity will surprise him with goodness. Don't let evil get the best of you, but get the best of evil by doing good. I hope that you have enjoyed this series as much as we have. And come back next week. We're going to actually start a summer series on, do you want me to tell everybody, Kara, or do you want it to be a surprise?
Oh yeah, go ahead and give them a teaser.
The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And the fun thing about this is whether you love C.S. Lewis or hate C.S. Lewis, come back because we're going to have both sides there and it is going to be amazing. So I hope that you have enjoyed this week. We've loved doing the series with you. Come back next week. And until then, have a great rest of your day.